I just want a gimme. I just want somebody to throw a strike right down the middle so I can.
Did you see the Zach Greinke? Those guys that threw a 50-mile-an-hour pitch the other day?
Yeah. What was that about?
You didn't see it?
That's hilarious.
He like right back like
I think
he's gonna
we're
throw it,
live.
and he just lobs it in and freezes the bat.
Yeah.
Strike two, like 50 miles an hour right down the pike, and he's just like, ugh.
And then
he
the
just
next-
laughs, and then he burns 90 miles on the outside corner.
Jake, is your microphone on?
No, I muted it.
Okay, I mean,
They ran more efficiently.
well, it's because
We're
we're
making it possible.
Teasing.
That will be possible after.
after
I'm
tonight.
just teasing.
Okay, I believe we're recording, let's,
You gotta have a little lighthearted humor. That's why John and I are here.
it's got something new on, just a second.
Okay, I am recording, Pam.
Okay.
But I don't know. Are we live? Can somebody?
We
look
are
at-
live.
Can somebody look at YouTube?
Pam, you're muted.
No, we're not.
You need to turn your audio off too.
One person's watching.
It's only giving me part of the thing.
Watch myself.
You're on YouTube. Okay, great. Turn that audio off.
Yours is
Look at
on.
what I've got. I don't have anything.
It might be on
It's
your
your
laptop.
It's on your lap.
She's working her laptop.
We got too many things.
Say something again.
Hey,
It's off.
we're good.
Is YouTube working?
Yes, I
YouTube
checked
is
it.
working.
Okay, then we're rolling.
Okay. 6:03. Okay, so I'm ready. We start when you can.
Yes.
The microphones don't sound like they're on.
Are your microphones on?
Okay, today is Wednesday, August 26th, and the time is 6:03, and I would like to call the Vineyard City Council to session. Tice, would you be okay to say our pledge and prayer? Okay.
All right, Father, as we gather at this moment, we ask that blessing be upon us as we ponder the affairs of this fair city. We give you thanks for the multitude of blessings we receive. We're thankful for those who serve us this day, the police and the fire, and the others that reach out and assist us in our times of need. We would ask that blessing be upon those at this time who are in danger in Texas and Louisiana. May they get through this storm safely. We thank you for all things. In his name, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
We all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and move to public comments. Do we have any public comments online? Can you check the chat?
I didn't get any yet.
Okay.
Do I need to do something specific to open the chat?
Yes. Why, I don't know why. Here we go. Two chats. Anthony is on there? No, I don't.
There's nothing in chat right now.
Okay, great. Seeing that there are no public comments, we'll turn the time over to Sergeant Holden Rockwell, who will give the quarterly report for the Utah County Sheriff's Office.
All right, Holden, I have unmuted you. I will share my screen and pull your report up. Oh, it's already sharing my screen. Hold on one second. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so this report here is gonna be for our first and second quarter of this year. Obviously, we're a little late in getting these ones out, and everything going on. So the first and second quarter, you can see our total CAD calls, from the first quarter to the second quarter went down a little bit. However, our public generated calls increased during that time. And then with that increase in public generated, you see a decrease in officer generated calls. Also, our case numbers went up quite a bit between the first and second quarter. Arrests came down, and then you can see some of our proactive work on traffic stops and citations were down quite a bit for the second quarter. Probably one of the main reasons for that is our directive to the deputies to help keep them safe, limit the contact with COVID and everything going on. So they weren't out making quite as many traffic stops or citizen contacts. So that, with the increase in public generated calls, is kind of the explanation for those traffic stops and citations. If you go down, you can see our burglaries and our thefts stayed fairly consistent, 24 for first quarter, 30 for the second quarter. Our assaults and our domestic violence cases, 34 for the first and 26 for the second. And then our drugs and alcohol went down as well, 40 to 15. Once again, that's mostly because of our productivity decrease because of COVID. However, with that, when the guys weren't as being as proactive, they were able to respond quicker to calls. You can see we were quite a bit under 5 minutes on our second quarter response to priority 1 and 2 calls, just slightly over 5 minutes for the first quarter. So that's the report for the first and second quarter. Are there any questions on that?
Council, are there any questions? Thank you, Holden. That's great.
And if I could Mayor, if I could just take 1 minute.
Yeah, can you get rid of that so we can see his face?
For the support for myself and for the deputies. It means a lot at this time with everything going on in the nation. Really appreciate the support from the city and from the residents. I know my deputies really appreciate it, and so do their families. We've had a lot more people coming up to us and telling us thank you, and offering to buy us drinks and things like that from the city and from the residents. So we really appreciate it, and just want you to know we're here to help and support the city and serve the best we can. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate everything you guys do. So I don't know if the council had anything.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are killing it. Good job.
Thank you.
So you said there's another person coming on. We'll have an opportunity to meet him in the future. Is that right?
Yes.
Switch.
So my supervisor, my lieutenant, has changed. It was Lieutenant Wayne Key that is now Lieutenant Sean Calvin, and we'll make arrangements so that you guys can meet him here in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to Mariah's report. Is Mariah ready?
I'm going to be giving it.
Oh, okay.
So this is just the quarter 4, so end of year budget report for the city. You can see the revenues here. This is the budget. This is our actuals. So we ended the year slightly above at 110% of our budgeted amount for the revenue side. This is the general fund. And then our budgeted expenditures, we came in just slightly below at 95%. So that's good news. We put away just over $1 million into the capital projects fund for the year to help fund future expenses. The RDA's here, the other enterprise funds are here. Good news on all of these is that they all came in the green. So we didn't have any that needed subsidy from the general fund, and we stayed below budget, so we won't have an audit finding in that regard. So if you want, this is a summary page. Obviously, there's a deeper dive here on the analysis sheet. So if you guys want to look that over, if you have any questions, let me know, and then we'll put this up on our website, and the residents will be able to take a look at this as well. If they have questions, they can reach out to our finance department. And then just a really quick, on the finance side, we were able to lock in a candidate for our accounting role. And so we hired a girl named Bailey Beeson, and she is incredible. Mariah is really excited about that. We've been offloading some of those tasks that Mariah was working to Bailey, and then we'll be able to kind of transition up and offload more of my finance stuff back to her. So great. We're really excited to have her. She's going to be a great employee. That's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Jake. Let's go ahead and move on to our consent items. Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Great.
I make the motion to approve consent items 5.1 and 5.2.
And a second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move to discussion and presentation. Our first presentation is going to be by Marlon Lindsay. He's with Tech Trep, and he's going to do a presentation on how Vineyard could become a STEM city.
Marlon, do you want me to share your presentation, or do you want to share your screen?
I would like to share my screen if I could.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. I think you have the ability to do that now.
Hey Marlon, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it very, very much. All right, here's my
We got you.
screenshot. Awesome. So, Madam Mayor, City Council members and staff and esteemed colleagues, thank you for having me today. I would love to have a conversation about Vineyard doing something that very few cities are doing across the country, but most cities, if not all, need to do across the country. Here we go. So I'm just going to give a context for this conversation, if we will. It'll take about 7 minutes to get through these slides. So there's a study from the Oxford University that came out a few years ago that says 47% of all jobs that we know today will either disappear or be transformed so much that the incumbent performers won't be able to do them. And that includes government. We have examples in England where AI is assisting judges to make decisions. The biggest problem with that is that not all kids are being ready for, folks say the 21st century, but we say the rest of the 21st century is 21st century skills. And the numbers are alarming, quite frankly. So we have 400 computer science jobs across the country right now that we're not able to fill. And we only graduated about 71,000 students across the country to fill those jobs. By 2028, we'll have about 2.4 million advanced manufacturing jobs available that we're not going to be able to fill. And right now, across globally, we have about 1 million cybersecurity jobs that we're not able to fill, half of which are in the United States. So in Utah, incidentally, we have this number changed, which is good news. We had when I put this presentation together, almost 5,000 jobs in the computer science area that we weren't able to fill with the graduates of 2000. These numbers are from 2018 graduates, but they don't change much. Only just over 1,200 students graduated to take those jobs. So I'm going to throw some facts out at you. So this is not, if you look at the issue, this is not a problem of education alone. If we can't educate enough students to take the jobs of the 21st century, then we're getting into a workforce development issue. And if we're getting into education and workforce development issues, then we're truly getting into economic development issues. So our charge in Vineyard and across the country is to ensure that that we put 100% of our kids through STEM education, and not discounting our traditional education core instruction. That's necessary, mandatory. But in addition to that, our kids must have STEM experiences. We need all hands on deck to do that, and we certainly at TechTrep we're doing our part. We just launched a virtual STEM and CTE Academy, and we're doing virtual STEM camps to help school districts, any sort of after-school organizations, and even at-home access to get more kids and to really get all kids involved in STEM. COVID-19 doubled down on the problem. If we had issues before getting kids ready for STEM to impact the workforce, it's going to be enormous a few years. Post-pandemic, as we see the impact of it, companies like myself and others, we're doing everything we can to automate our processes so that we're not hit with another pandemic and have to shut our doors like we did with COVID-19. So it's even more important that we get a workforce that's STEM-centric and STEM-ready. So a responsive model is really necessary. And a STEM city is the conversation. A Vineyard as a STEM city means that we get all stakeholders at the table talking about the impact that lack of STEM is having on the workforce now. And you'll find in our community that employers are telling you they have jobs that they can't fill, and what that means to them. You'll have institutions of higher learning talking about what they need to do to get kids ready. You'll have schools talking about what they need to do. We'll have parents talking about what they do. Other organizations that are serving kids talking about what they do. So a background and a context for having Vineyard become a STEM city is what I just presented. Any questions in terms of what I just showed you and where we need to go?
Council, are there any questions?
I guess just a simple question is, how do we enact or roll this out? What does that look like?
That's a really great question. So typically when we roll out a STEM city, we have our schools system on board. We have the city government on board, and we can go in and through all of that. So it looks like providing access to kids in school, after school, and out of school. And we'll work with our schools to ensure that they have access and to fit where they can within the curriculum. We'll help them spin up after school programs so that we can get more kids have access. The thing that you will hear our schools talk about is time, not enough certified teachers, and where to give kids, all kids, not just the 10%, but all kids. So we'll roll that out there. We'll look at our community organizations where kids go after school, and the licenses will follow the students, so they automatically have access to this STEM program. And then we help them train up mentors and coaches to roll this out. And then at-home access is really important. We have a lot of homeschoolers in Vineyard. We have a lot of parents who are highly involved in their students' education. They become mentors and guides, and that's a twofer actually, because as we roll it out to students at home, the parents also upskill and reskill themselves to leverage the technologies of the 21st century.
One of the concepts I was thinking we could do is there's a couple of them. We could facilitate a conversation between Alpine School District or our local school districts and have that discussion and see what that looks like and what kind of partnerships that we could do there. There's a telehealth portion of the CARES Act funding that we could show support for, but Tech Truck would have to go after themselves, but we could show support in them gaining a grant for that. And then recently we were meeting with a group that is part of the Oaks Foundation, and the Oaks Foundation works with single moms or families to teach them coding and kind of get them out in the workforce. And so they are really excited about our concepts and our ideas for trying to move STEM within our city. And they said they would love to have a conversation and try to facilitate this and possibly become a partner on it. So those are some things that we could look at as we're having these discussions.
Marlon, this is Chris Chris Judd on the council. I mean, it looks like you've partnered with Hill Air Force Base, Domo, people like that. How could we integrate that into Vineyard, would you say, like those local organizations as well?
Oh man, that is where the rubber hits the road, because when you truly want to tap into your stakeholders, so the city may have access to funding or point us in the direction of funding, but that's a part, and we really want our stakeholders to be at the table. We talk about one, to create awareness around their issues. They have them, and they may not be talking about them, but two, to participate. They offering mentors to go through these courses to some of the kids. Offerings mentors for our STEM camp, which is what we did with junior achievements, Hill Air Force, Police, Domo, etc. And these STEM camps are quick hits that we can gather our community around a 3-day STEM camp that introduces just about all of our kids and their parents to STEM in a way that they might be intimidated to jump into otherwise. So getting your stakeholder participation as we roll this out, it's crucial.
So would you say, as we're looking for local, companies, things like that, is there certain criteria you're looking for to participate? I mean, this is fairly new to us, but I just wanting to know is there a criteria list that a certain company needs to meet, or is it kind of anyone?
It's really anyone. You want it to be as open as possible, so any company can step up as a member of the community, for sure.
So Marlon, how do those companies join? So for instance, we have a youth council member that's working with Blending Dynamics in Vineyard, and this is a great partnership for them to mentor her and teach her about kind of what they're doing. How would a company like that participate?
So I think one of the first things, if you decide to move forward on a STEM project, one of the first things is to have an awareness meeting where you invite your stakeholders to talk about the opportunity of a STEM city. And so that's creating awareness. And then individually will reach out to the stakeholders and say, hey, this is what we're doing as a part of, in coming from your office, our economic workforce development and education initiative. And so the legwork is what will help you with reaching out to identifying your stakeholders, reaching out to them for awareness sake, and then asking them to participate in this initiative. And that happens in the form of emails, letters, or we even go knock on doors to let our folks know that Vineyard is a 21st century city that needs their participation. And it benefits them. The message of economic development through workforce development and economic development will resonate with your businesses. And when that does, you'll see them participate in a way that really is impressive.
So the partnership between you and those entities is just that they're kind of getting on board with what we're doing here. So kind of participating how they are now, except that the education would be more broad and significant.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Just creating awareness, getting their participants. And we're not necessarily asking for funding. One of the things that businesses will tell you that the last thing they want you to do is to show up and ask first for funding, but really selling them on the idea that Vineyard is a 21st century city and we're rolling out this initiative so that we can develop the workforce and the education level of our city is really impressive to a lot of folks. And quite frankly, most of them will be shocked by this initiative because it is a 21st century initiative.
So I really love this idea. I feel like as a city, we've kind of been pushing this forward in small ways and trying to have this develop. I mean, like I said, even on our youth council, we have been working with several different entities in the city, and I think we're trying to accomplish this. I think this today is just the start of a discussion that I think we can start trying to figure out how we would facilitate this, what we could do, where do we go from here. And like I said, for me personally, I think it's facilitating some of those conversations or creating a group within staff to kind of flush out the ideas. Do you guys have other ideas on that, or?
Yeah, I think, in conjunction with the school district, right, as well, and UVU, obviously. And then there are startup type facilitator organizations in Provo and Orem that I think would be smart to put that on as well. So I think it's a good conversation to start.
That's great. Any other comments?
I'd just say I'm in support of this as well. When my oldest son was in 3rd grade, I remember talking to his teacher, and she said, "It's my job to prepare your son for a job that hasn't been invented yet." And that always has stuck with me. That was several years ago, but I feel like that's kind of all of our duties with our children these days, is we just don't, none of us know. None of us know what even next year looks like, let alone, 10 years from now. So I think I know that even in our own city, we've got residents with companies that would be great to reach out to. We have a resident that owns a coding school, literally. So, and I know that our local universities have programs in chemistry, engineering, all sorts of things already for children. So I think we can partner with that and bring them into our city and whatever.
100% for you. When I was a secondary teacher, I helped run the system in our school. So let's go.
So I think, Jake, and correct me if I'm wrong, should we just start kind of building that coordination group through staff, and we can start fleshing those ideas out and then bring them back to council as we move forward?
Yeah, I think with discussions we've had tonight, this is something that we could put on our economic development agenda, and we can start pushing that as a priority where we meet the businesses, future businesses in our city as well, and talking about this as an issue.
I think that's great. Okay, Marlon, do you have any more questions or comments for us? Because I think we're ready to move forward with that next step.
No, you're right where you need to be. Thank you. Rest assured, I heard UVU and the school district. We talked a lot about businesses, but part of what we do initially is to take an inventory of your stakeholder resources, because the kids will learn through our educational platform, but then they'll need to go out and do through our stakeholder ecosystem that we have here. It's really important that we bring them together. So you're thinking along the right track. Thank you for the time today to share this idea. It's a big one, but I think we're ready for it.
That's great.
And oh, by the way, I'm a mayor. I'm a Vineyard resident, but I don't know that others do. But this is my hometown, so I want to see us stand above. I'm not competitive at all, but I just want to see us stand above.
We are competitive though, so we'll agree.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marlon. We're going to have our staff reach out to you, and we're going to get moving on this with you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move to, let's see. Oh, Jake, it's back up to you for our CARES Act funding discussion.
That sounds great. Let me just pull the budget up real quick. So, as you guys know, we have been discussing the CARES Act for a few months now, and we have been waiting on further clarification from the federal government. I've had multiple meetings with the county and city managers from around the county, and really around the state, talking about what the federal requirements are for spending the money, what the county requirements are for spending the money. And there is, in my opinion, some discrepancies between the two. So the federal guidelines came out, they had some frequently asked questions, they had some recommendations, they've had multiple meetings since the money was distributed. And one of the things that's really kind of debated right now, where the cities are saying we see this as a cost that should be allowed, and the federal government has agreed in meetings and in FAQs, but not necessarily yet in the guidelines, is that the money can be spent on public safety. So in the guidelines, or in the code when it initially came out, it said the money cannot be spent on a previously budgeted item. Well, then they came out and they clarified that to say, obviously no one budgeted spending any time responding to COVID. Whether or not you had public safety or other personnel budgeted in your staff, they were not budgeted to spend the time that they've spent. Well, the county has come back and said that they're not necessarily comfortable with HR costs for public safety being spent, because it says it's previously budgeted. So we're in that debate. But we've got feedback from, I showed Julie today, I think we have feedback from 15 local cities. 12 of the 15 are spending the majority of the CARES Act money on public safety. So I wanted to bring a plan to you guys and talk to you about it and see how you feel about it. So we have We talked about a bunch of different CARES Act expenditures at a staff level, and I've kind of mentioned a lot of these to the city council.
Jake, what's the amount of money?
We collected, you put me on the spot now. 700, about 700,000, give or take.
That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
Something I thought was interesting that you pointed out was that our officers and our fire department those services are using about 30%.
Yes, I mean, just like today, you saw hold-ins and calls for service are up 20 to 30% from first quarter. Maybe not all of those are directly COVID calls, but they could be COVID attributed in some way to COVID, some. So I don't necessarily think we need to go as far as saying, well, we're just going to spend it on public safety and we'll put the rest of the money in the general fund and we can kind of decide what we want to do from there. But I do think that on this list, what we did is we came up with a list and then we looked at the county guidelines and what their recommendations were, and then we gave the list a ranking. 1 being low risk of a future audit, 2 being kind of risky, and then we deleted all of the 3s. The 3s were
Fireworks show didn't get bigger because of this.
yeah, John. Fireworks show was 3, and that one got deleted. So I'm sorry.
Let's slip a little more in there.
So this is the list of things that we
Community
have. A lot of them are.
Can you share it on
Oh yeah, I need to
Zoom?
share the screen. Thank you. Yeah, that's good feedback. Okay, so a lot of them are technology related. I really want to make this meeting that's happening right now much more efficient. And so we've got $75,000 in there for upgrades for software and hardware for council meetings.
Well, and we need to, because we don't know how long this is going to be going, and
Right.
this is difficult right now, the way that we're doing it. It would be nice to be able to look that way.
Right, and so we've also got money for smart boards, so we can put some smart boards up there. And then the discussion we're having in the council meeting will be on their screen at the same time. So they can see
That
what's
would be
going on
great.
on the smart board. You guys can also see everybody's doing the same thing. And if you look around the room, clearly this would be a different story 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a different experience. We need to do what we can, and I think that's a great way to spend it. So we've got that. We've got all of the PPE, hand sanitizer for our staff, hand washing stations at the parks, bottle filling stations for the parks. And I've also talked to the school districts. Alpine School District is putting 1 bottle filling station in each of their schools. We talked about helping them with another one so that their drinking fountains aren't drinking fountains, that they're bottle filling stations. Because according to Alpine School District's code, they can't turn off their drinking fountains. And so they're still running, people are using them, but if they were both bottle filling stations, wouldn't have an issue. I want to make that same offer to the charter schools in the city, so that we can protect the baby kids. They're $1,500 for a bottle filling station. We can spend a little bit of money on those and help the kids while they're in school. We also talked about additional parks maintenance, and that has been ongoing all summer. So we've been cleaning the parks more often, we've been sanitizing the playground equipment, we've been cleaning the restrooms more often, taking the trash out more often. We want to get a trailer sprayer that will pull behind the side-by-side that we have, and we can fog the pavilions and the playground equipment. It'll be a lot quicker than what we're doing right now. Let's see. Zoom licenses, obviously we're using that right now. Employee reimbursements, we've been requiring a lot of the employees to spend more time remotely, so reimbursing their cell phones and their home internet for the times that we've been working remotely, and then if it goes back into remote, it's following the same thing. And that's it. So There's a list here of about $400,000 in costs. I think that will probably go down. We put budget numbers next to a lot of these because we didn't know exactly what they were going to cost. Prices are fluctuating, and there's a lot more suppliers for some of these materials coming into the market right now, and so those prices are going down. But my proposal would be, let's fund all of the number one items on this list, and then whatever balance left is allocated to public safety.
Now, we had talked about additional screens or computers for employees that were at home,
Right.
computers for the council.
Right, so that's included in the IT costs. So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is we know that you guys have been participating in these meetings remotely. There's been more coordination between staff and council done over email. So, I talked with Julie about purchasing laptops for the city council rather than having you guys work on iPads. Is that something that you guys think would be beneficial? Is that something that would be helpful?
For me personally, it wouldn't be necessary.
It wouldn't?
It's not necessary.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I probably wouldn't need one. The iPad's worked for me.
Okay. Ties, I know you had some struggles with a laptop better.
One that works better.
Okay.
Well, that was the thought, is that iPads, they're used for some things, and they're much more likely to not be as reliable. Even if you just use the computer and you were like, there's a moving like a laptop around here that people take home, you could facilitate it that way, however you wanted to do it, but making it so that you can be present in the ways that you really want to be. And I mean, you're going to have LPC that's coming up. All of those things are going to be on Zoom. I know every meeting that I now do is digital, you know.
Yes.
So I think it would be, I mean, obviously having access to city server, things like that. I mean,
You get that with a laptop. You can't with a...
right, and I guess that I would just change my answer a little bit because that just hasn't been an option in the past, so I haven't needed it. So if it is an option, then I could see a benefit to that if we felt like the council would need that.
If I didn't already own a functioning laptop that I use religiously, I would want one. I don't like working on an iPad, but I personally don't need one. I have one.
The difference is we couldn't give you access to the server on your personal computer.
And I always think it's a good idea to use a city, I think it's good to use a city device for conducting city business and try, because you want to keep your personal stuff separate.
They're really strict at the state level about data, and so when we get rid of computers, there is a whole coded process for getting rid of computers, and it's kind of ridiculous, but...
Because I'll say this, I mean, there are times when we're preparing for a meeting where I think having shared access to a file would be so much better than waiting for it to be uploaded to. So I think I'm going to change my response and say yes.
I'm open on that topic. I like the city app and website upgrade that has a question mark because with the remote nature of things, the better those function, the more in touch our citizens will be with us and the city.
Absolutely, that's big time for me
Yeah,
too.
I was just, can I say something? There's also an option that we could do a agenda management system so that you could access, that you guys would actually just log into that system as we put stuff in. You could look and see what's coming up. I wouldn't have to do, the stuff I'm doing now to get it to you guys, so that's an option. And it may or may not, depending on, because I'm trying to get quotes for everything right now. Brian and I are working on that, but to do the video recording differently as well. And so some of them are integrated with their agenda management, some aren't.
So
I think anything and everything you can do to upgrade your IT, apps, website at this point in time would be a very good use. I think public safety is also a huge use because we did see the increase went up. So I'm generally in favor of looking at everything that's IT related.
Okay, and I can't remember, I know we had a conversation with the county about an app and a website, and I can't remember why we put that as a two. But I'll follow back up with that item, and we can include that in our list.
That's great.
We put it as a 2 because we thought it would take too long. The money has to be spent by November. So we can do that, but it would probably need to be done through the general fund. Because it's going to take us some time to source something like that. And the last time through the website, it took 9 months. So.
Yeah,
You
let's
could
look
still
into
ask.
it.
We can still ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you guys feel comfortable with that approach?
Yeah, can you explain a little bit about the public information storyboard sign?
What we wanted to do was to put some of those monument signs that have rolling text, kind of like what the Home Builders Association did, put them in public areas around the city, just so we can share information, public safety information with the residents.
I believe you need a conditional use permit for that.
Yes,
We're going to have to put in an application, actually.
That was one of my, I mean, you can tell who's been on planning commission most recently, because she beat me to it.
We need 51,000 in there so that we can pay a permit fee.
That's right.
You gotta pay them off.
And you're just lucky that Christie's not on planning commission anymore.
Morgan says we have to pay the pipe.
Do you feel like you have enough guidance there?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure you guys felt comfortable with it. I think there's a lot of cities that are moving forward that direction. I hadn't shared our feedback yet because we hadn't talked yet, but I will share the feedback that we will be spending the money on public safety as well as the tier 1 costs that we assigned.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to business items. 8.1, and Jake, you'll be presenting this. This is the shared use maintenance agreement with the HOA.
We started talking about this last week or 2 weeks ago. Okay. The shared use maintenance agreement is again.
Do you want to share that?
I think it's still shared, is it not?
Your report though.
It's not on Zoom.
Zoom.
Sure. Thanks. Will you continue to be a watchdog on there?
Maybe we need to put in trainer for Jake on how to use Zoom.
There's a lot to coordinate here. Okay, so 8.1, shared use maintenance agreement. The Penny Springs Park is almost complete, where we have a few remaining punch list items, an ever-dwindling list of punch list items. One of the things that we needed to get approved was a shared use agreement for the parking lot, because the HOA clubhouse used the parking lot, but the park will also use the parking lot. We need to get the agreement approved. There's going to be some shared costs as far as maintaining the parking lot, irrigating the landscaping around the parking lot, and maintenance of the landscaping.
How are Public Works concerns met?
So the concern that Public Works had is they said that the developer or the HOA would cover the maintenance, but then there was a line at the end of the agreement that said that we would be responsible for irrigation maintenance. What we did is we talked to the HOA and we said, well, that was a mistake, we didn't intend that, we were responsible for maintenance, you guys cover the water costs, so we'll just delete that line. So we worked that out, So the Public Works Department is comfortable with the agreement. We are comfortable.
How do you think this will affect us with parking and the concerns that have been going on from our residents?
So right now, the holding condition is better. I don't know if he's on the call. But right now, they're all.
Because we don't allow parking in our park after a certain time.
Right, and it's currently not allowed overnight at the HOA.
Okay.
Right now, it's just signed through University Towing. So we would, initially, we were handling the enforcement. It's been passed back to University Towing. We would take it back once this agreement is signed, and we would cover the parking enforcement. We could set up specific hours. Because right now, in our normal parks, it's from 11 to 6, parking is not allowed. 11 to 5.
I just looked it up.
you today? Because I thought the amendment on
So the Penny Springs Park,
Hold on.
the signs on that are 11:30 to 5 a.m.
Okay.
However, our normal parks, we close at 11.
is because of the, I think, talked about the
clubhouse.
clubhouse that have different hours.
Right.
Is the concern on that, even though it's different from our park?
Yeah. So we will still sign it and enforce the no parking overnight, but we'll work with the HOA to find out what hours the clubhouse is.
And regardless, we will have parking issues.
Yes.
So Holden, you wanted that amendment in the agreement, right?
If we feel it's necessary, I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
you know, if we're going to revoke that permit for university parking enforcement, and that we're going to enforce the parking. So I don't know if the council feels it's necessary to put that in the agreement, or if David Church feels that's necessary, then I would suggest that. If not, if we just come to an agreement with them, either way, I would like us to enforce it where it is, where we own the parking.
Yeah.
So is there a benefit or to just leaving it with the other entity to enforce parking versus having sheriff do it?
I guess it depends on who you are, whether it's a benefit or not.
I'm
If you're
asking,
complaining about parking, it's a benefit. If you're the ones being towed, it's not.
so in terms of you as a sheriff and us as a city, is there a benefit to keeping it with them versus us taking it back?
That was kind of my
We don't
point
have
too.
any problems with parking at any of the other parks. We enforce that pretty heavily. We'll go in and kick people out. Occasionally, you'll have a vehicle overnight in Vineyard Grove Park, but those can receive citations. Where Penny Springs is going to be a shared use, it'll be signed, and will be a lot more heavier enforcement on that part because of the shared use.
Yeah, that was-
I've had some complaints there.
That was part of my question for this is, are we adopting additional parking issues that we'll have to take on? You
Well,
know?
and just an overall thinking too. I mean, I'm not saying we change what we do, but do we want public safety enforcing parking, right? In the long term in parks, if this becomes an issue, does it eat up your time? Does it make your call time go up, or, because you're out doing other stuff? So I think maybe just keep looking at that, and if it is, we can look at the cost benefit if we need to switch it back.
Yeah, because I feel like, hasn't that been a discussion? I feel like that parking lot in specific has generally a lot of parking issues currently that we would be taking on.
It did initially until it was signed. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
the concerns there have gone down dramatically when parking enforcement started.
Yes, they have. Even with the signs, and even when we were the ones out doing the enforcement, it decreased dramatically. And I guess my concern is we don't contract for any of our other public facilities for towing or for parking enforcement. So I don't know if we want to start doing that with any of the public or the city-owned properties.
And then what's the benefit of us taking this on?
I don't know if there's a benefit necessarily, other than I would say, part of the reason we enacted the towing code was to reduce predatory towing, and a lot of the complaints we were getting from that. And we as a sheriff's office are probably less predatory than a towing code, if I can say that.
I don't know that there's necessarily a benefit, but it's designed as a shared use where we're both going to be needing to provide parking, and the benefit is we're not providing two separate parking lots. But that was just the way it was platted and designed at the beginning, is that it would be a shared lot between the parking.
So it's not an application that's just coming from the HOA right now. It's something that we were planning on because of how parking is.
Yeah, I don't know that, Public Works is on the call, they can probably answer that, or planning as well. I don't know that this was necessarily thought of in the beginning. When we designed the park, we just had some constraints. We designed it and said, there's a parking lot fits here, it can be used by both entities. We didn't necessarily think about the agreement.
Okay.
Don, Chris, Sullivan, Morgan, you guys have anything you'd like to add or feel necessary to add to this conversation?
In your staff report, it's still saying, it says the bottom line of the background discussion says the HOA will maintain the landscaping areas and the city will cover the cost of irrigation and maintain the irrigation system.
Good
That was
catch.
the concern that we had, wanted to remove maintaining the irrigation system.
It was corrected in the agreement. I didn't correct it in the staff report. Good catch, Sullivan. Thank you.
If I can clarify on that, Sullivan, I was reading through the agreement, it does mention that, but it's only referring to parcel A, which is the parcel that the city owns. So it's saying that the HOA will cover the landscape maintenance, but the city will provide the irrigation and maintain the irrigation system.
Yeah, so
The city owned parcel.
Yeah, so I talked with Bronson about that, and Bronson's okay covering the maintenance of the irrigation system on those park strips and throughout parcel A. So that wasn't a concern on their side, so if that's not a concern, having them do that, then I think we should leave it.
I do have a question about that. As maintenance, as landscaping happens and they knock over all those sprinkler heads and the sprinklers are often over there shooting up for like several days, if it's our park and it's what we're over and there's water always leaking and we're paying for the water and then it's not being dealt with, how does that affect us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a water house there for sure.
Yeah.
So if you knock a sprinkler head, it will only come up when that station is running. You won't have water 24 hours a day. It's just, the 15 minutes a day that station is running is when we see leaking. Right now, the issue that we have is there are some, that's part of the commercial studies, but there are some, what we think are some control valves that are stuck open. And so we've had some sprinklers that are just constantly running. Those aren't necessarily broken heads, they're just a control valve that's stuck open.
Okay. I just know there was some four-wheeling things that came on and they drove over like 24 sprinklers and busted them all and there was a big problem there. So I just didn't know how that was going to affect us as a city. Okay.
Just around the park.
Okay.
Just that area in front of the clubhouse and around.
Sounds great. Any other questions from the council on this? Do you feel comfortable moving forward and making a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve and allow the mayor to sign the shared maintenance agreement as presented tonight.
Second.
Okay, can I interrupt before we make a motion?
Yes.
On this?
I retract my
In
motion.
Section 3, it doesn't state who pays for the dumpsters.
Yeah, he's saying that we need to determine who's paying for the dumpsters on section 3.
If it's not listed, I would assume it's covered by the HOA.
Do we need to put that in the contract? Yeah. Any other changes, Chris or Sullivan, or are we good?
That was the only thing that I saw.
Okay.
I believe my concerns were clarified. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to redo the motion that I move to approve and allow the mayor to sign the shared maintenance agreement as presented tonight with the following correction. In section 3, the dumpsters will be paid for by the HOA.
And the fixing of the report.
Correct, and the staff report will be updated.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to the Municipal Code Amendment 3.08, electronic meetings. Pam, did you want to explain that?
Yes, in the state code, it requires the cities to adopt electronic meetings code, and the state updated the code in June. And so now that the governor has not reissued his executive order for open and public meetings, we need to make sure we have our code up to date to match the state code so that we can have electronic meetings without an anchor location or without a quorum at an anchor location, and also amend our emergency meeting code as well. Any questions on that?
I can make the motion unless
So
there's
we're
more
adopting
discussion. That seems pretty straightforward.
Pretty close, not quite, but pretty close.
So I'll make the motion that we move to adopt ordinance 2020-10, amending the municipal code title 3.08, electronic meetings, as presented.
Okay, can I get a second? And this is done by roll call. John?
Yay.
Chris?
Yay.
Yay. Tice?
Yay.
Christy?
Yay.
Okay, great. That carried. Discussion and action, mosquito abatement interlocal agreement with Utah County. Go ahead and take this away, Jake.
Okay, we met with the county, we had some phone calls with the county last year. We started getting an increase of calls in the end of August, 1st of September last year. And the county said, well, we ran out of money and we're done spraying for the year. So they just have a set budget each year, and it typically takes them through the end of August. And then they're just done for the year. Well, I talked to the county mosquito abatement director and said, would it be possible if the city contracted with you and help cover the cost of that last month if you come spray the city in the month of September? And he said, absolutely, we just need to put a contract together. Well, this is a contract for extension of the mosquito abatement through the end of the month. So we'll be purchasing a container of the spray that they use the rest of the year, and then it's a contract with their staff to continue the spraying efforts.
And Jake, this wouldn't take away from the budget that we have to do abatement currently within the city. I think abatement was a little bit different this year, but naturally as we go through the next few years, I'm just wondering how this affects the budget.
Well, this would be part of what we allocated for the year. So, if we have 50,000, this would be 24 or 50,000. I don't know what the number was, but just that would be part of what we spent on this.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we had additional.
Yeah, and just a comment on that. I think I remember when they came and spoke to us. It might have been a year or so ago. I mean, it sounds like the opportune and best time to do it is when they've been doing it. Is that correct? In terms of us using the money or them using the money, it seemed like at least their approach of doing it was probably a little bit better based upon location, trap counts, and things like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
because that's where they're spraying, right? Okay.
Yeah, so anything additional that we would need, we could do.
What about, I should know the answer to this, I just don't. The mosquitoes honestly have been pretty good so far, and I want to keep that, so I'm all in favor of this. The midge flies, or what are those called? Is that the right name, midge flies? Mayfly, midge flies, those are not affected by the spray, obviously.
They are.
They come out at different times. There's a different time, and so when they're spraying for the mosquitoes, they're spraying at a certain time, and those midge flies actually, if they're out, it will kill them. But if they're not out, it won't.
And this is why you'll see them dead on your doorstep in the morning.
But typically, they're not out at the same time. There's some transitioning that will be caught.
The mosquitoes have been, honestly, not much of a problem this year as far as mosquitoes, but the midge flies have been at times atrocious. So that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah, and there's different aspects that we should look into when talking about abatement. For instance, when you're walking on the trail early in the morning, I don't know, because of how they count the mosquitoes in the traps, they're not necessarily accounting for cleaning those trails, of all the midge flies in the morning. And so if we wanted to focus on something like that, that's what we would do with the ancillary budget that Jake says available.
All right, well, yeah, I'm all in favor. So unless anyone else, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-15 and allow the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with Utah County.
Second.
Okay, this is done by roll call. John?
Yay.
Chris?
Aye.
Aye. Tice?
Yay.
And Christy? Okay, excellent. We'll move on to Municipal Code Amendment, Parking Regulations, Ordinance 2020-11. This is staff is requesting the approval of an amendment to the Municipal Code of unlawful parking. And Jake, are you going to be presenting this tonight?
Me to do it?
Morgan. I can talk about it.
Okay, great, Morgan. Take it away.
Now, so Liz unfortunately wasn't able to make it tonight. So, Pam, you feel free to jump in. I think you worked with Liz on this. But essentially, as I read the code, what it looks like is it does two things. So this is Ordinance 2020-11 is amended to the municipal code, which is outside of the zoning code, and it's more of the operation of how the streets are used. And it adjusts the code to bring it in line with our practice now. So the first part of that, under subsection 040, is provides an exception for mobile food businesses to be able to have use of the streets. Currently, there's a regulation that prohibits peddling, and that's like the sale of goods, so-called peddling on the streets. But right now, we do have a code section, 5.16 for mobile food businesses. And so what this does is it points to that section of code which we already have. It basically says that food trucks need to follow that section of code. And so it's more of a reference, so it provides direction to our existing local food code. What the next one does, if you remember, I believe it was last year, we adopted a resolution for a policy that allows residents of a neighborhood to petition the city for no overnight parking signs. And currently the code indicates that a vehicle can be parked for 48 consecutive hours. And so this would conflict with that resolution. And so what this change all does is it provides, it just says unless otherwise posted. And so it just provides a little bit of language that allows us to follow through with the resolution. And so that's all it does. You still can't park more than 48 hours. However, if a neighborhood has gone through the petition process outlined in the policy adopted, then it can be restricted overnight as well, so that 48 hours wouldn't apply to those neighborhoods because no overnight parking would be allowed. So all this ordinance does is it aligns us with our current practice, and so staff is recommending.
Council, do you have any questions?
So, I mean, it doesn't sound like we're changing a whole lot. Who are we putting out by enacting this is my only real question. Are we putting any group of people or?
We're putting the city in line with our own regulations is what we're doing.
So it's kind of.
We're already doing the other piece of it.
Okay.
And it keeps us following our own code. It keeps us in compliance with the code.
All right, that seems pretty simple.
By making the simple changes with those few exceptions.
Okay. Yeah, I can make a motion. Yeah.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve ordinance 2020-11, amending the municipal code section 10.04.040- unlawful parking as presented.
Okay, this is done by ordinance and requires your roll call vote. John?
Yay.
Chris?
Aye.
Aye. Tice?
Aye.
Christy?
Yay.
Okay, great. We're going to go into a closed session tonight, but do I need to do that before adjourning the meeting? Okay. This also requires a roll call vote, so I'll need a motion for that.
I
Okay.
can make that motion.
Great.
I'd like to make a motion to go into a closed session, and it is for, let's see here.
Item A.
Item A, thank you. I was looking at B through G. So discussion of character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
Okay. Second by Christy. John?
Yay.
Chris?
Yay.
Yay. Tice? And Christy?
Yay.
Okay, thank you. And I just need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
By Tice in a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you all for coming tonight.